I am so glad to be here tonight. I had no idea it would be this type of event and this many people with so many of my wonderful friends. Thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate you. I'm Will Boyd, and I'm just excited to be here. I told you the reason why I'm here multiple times, if you've seen me on social media, is that I want every Alabamian to have a shot at the American dream. But sadly, some stats that just came out recently indicate that way over 50% of Alabamians and even Americans don't believe that the American dream is even achievable anymore. People don't believe that it's possible because of HB 445 or the big beautiful bill, that is even possible that we would even see ugly things like that happening right now. Don't do that again, Brother Johnson. That's that power that Jennifer came up here with and just took it out of the room. But anyway, again, I want every Alabamian to have a shot at the American dream. Sadly, we're experiencing a nightmare. Many businesses have recently faced closure. I was up in Huntsville, Alabama just a few days ago, really, with a group, Liberal Ladies Brigade, and another one, liberal group that was talking about the fact that so many businesses are closing, and a young lady showed up. I was trying to find the destination, and long story short, so was she. We both found it together. She said, I'm here to see you. I'm here because we have a business that was affected by HB 445. We have a business that's about to get shut down. She was the office manager. She talked about how inventory was already coming in from other stores who faced similar problems, and as a result, she was in a tight spot. So that's why I'm here tonight, just to talk to you about some of the reasons why I believe that I should serve as governor of Alabama and what I can do to help you. Now, let me start off with disclaimers. Being governor doesn't mean I can walk in day one and flip a switch and turn the lights on or off. That's
not about me, is it?
No. Everybody look at him right now. I'm just kidding. Not about you at all. Some people think that just because a person is elected governor, they can pardon everybody, they can undo whatever the legislature has done that they don't like. In reality, that's not the case. But I have a strategic way that we can fix it. Before I get there, let me just stop for a second. One of my good friends is in the back. Come on in, sir. Good to see you here tonight. How about give Brother Kennedy a great hand clap as well? We have challenges in Alabama that relate to our economy. That factors in, obviously, what we're talking about tonight with HB 445. We have issues that relate to education. We need to see that improve greatly. We have issues that are related to health care, women's rights, and a whole lot more. But let me just start by saying this. Alabamians want change. I'm proudly supported by not just Democrats, but Republicans, independents, and people who've never voted before. More Republicans have donated by numbers to our campaigns. We take the $5, $10, whatever people can give to our campaign because they see me not as the Democrat running for governor, but somebody who is passionately concerned about seeing everyone have a shot. Just full disclosure for you, I have a wife. I've been married to her 27 years. I have 3 kids. I have one child who is a senior at the University of North Alabama. I have another who's a sophomore at the University of Alabama. And I have a 12-year-old about to become 22 any day now. So I really need you to hone in and channel your energy towards me that I can even stay awake tonight with all I have going on. In reality, family matters a lot. And the reason why a lot of people are pushing behind our campaign is because they want to see their families be able to enjoy the American dream I keep talking about. Regrettably, so many are struggling, can't even pay bills that we are seeing Alabamians left behind every day. So let me get back to the stump speech message and say this first of all. In order for Alabama to do better, we need a thriving economy. And people will tell you that they believe Alabama is doing well. We can look at small cities and see that they have tax increment financing and they can attract businesses. But in reality, we have a lot of revenues that are being dried up in Alabama. That is going to leave Alabama in a state where we are going to miss budgets. We're not going to even make the budget. By October of this year, we're going to see a budget shortfall. The sugar high is over. We're going to see where just HB 445 being pushed that over $1 million in revenue is immediately cut off, and possibly over 1,000 businesses have already been terminated, if not about to see an end. We're going to see where businesses see that Alabama is not an inviting state, so as a result, they don't want to bring their big businesses in to even invest in our schools, invest in our communities, so that we can do better. As it relates to our economy, what can we do? We can have a blue-collar revival. We can bring in pro-labor people with pro-business people. We can pull the small businesses in, like yours, like ours, tell them what they can do to succeed, and I call it incubators, like this building that we're in right now, innovation portals and stations. We can show people what it takes to start businesses and thrive and survive. But with the bigger businesses, we can show them how they can explore alternative ways to bring people in to succeed and do well. How we can explore even what I'm calling a new Department of Energy for the state of Alabama, placing an energy commission in place that is actually going to help us explore alternate ways of even creating energy in our great state. I know people are going to push back on that one alone, but we need to embrace bold new ideas. We need to have an all-inclusive platform that pushes for coal. As I stood with coal miners, they were out on strike for 2 years in Brookwood, Alabama, and I was willing to work with them and just hear them out. Stand with them as they were fighting it out, trying their best to be heard. We also have to explore beyond electricity, hydroelectric opportunities. Our state is a biodiverse state, has a lot of waterways. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to go through a tunnel today. Yay! Being from the central part of the state, I can't say I've seen a tunnel in a while. So yeah, I went through the tunnel today. That was the highlight of my day, before seeing all of you, of course. But we need to embrace not only new technologies, new energy sources, but from a business point of view, Alabama has the opportunity to start in the north. Obviously, you saw Space Command is supposedly coming this way. That will bring in at least probably 30,000 more jobs. But you can see where innovation is at the top. You can see where administration is in the center. And you can see where obviously shipping and a whole lot more could take place in our state of Alabama. Alabama could be a state that's self-sufficient. Right now, for every dollar we give the federal government, they give us back 3. It is sad that we're in a state that we are so poor in Alabama. When I tell you how poor we are, it's not a joke. 900,000 people at any given time are experiencing poverty in Alabama. Over 1 million people, this is not about being poor, but are fighting, dealing with Social Security. We have over 280,000 in Alabama that could stand to have Medicaid expanded and have some type of health care. And yet, we keep falling behind voting the same people in office that aren't going to move us forward and do any better. What is wrong with that picture? Let me move a little bit forward, and I'm going to pause and allow you all to just ask me questions as long as you want. I don't want you to hear the same type of rhetoric and same type of message. I want you to hear that there are new, bold ways to make Alabama better. Alabama can be like a California, which gives more to the federal government than takes from it. We can be a state where we're not lagging behind from an innovation point of view and even an education point of view. I am a former educator. I've served as a dean and a professor. My parents, we have a great AEA person here at the national level, state level. Appreciate you being in the house this ward as well. Thank you for the education Alabama Rise brings to the table and a whole lot more. Appreciate you. But we need more educators who will come along and educate to help our state do better. This is why I'm pushing for what I call brain gain instead of brain drain. I have 2 young people, as I just said, that are in college. What are the chances that they're going to stay in Alabama if they can make more money? I see you saying they're not going to stay. Don't make me cry, you know. But seriously, our younger people are not going to want to stay around if there are no opportunities here. So we have to do better. As it relates to education, I can say a whole lot more about our institutions, but one of the things I'm very passionate about is that the person I'm likely to run against after this primary is over wants to invest more in prisons than he does in schools. We like to say he wants to invest more in cages or the prisons rather than children. Catch that for a minute. Cages over children. He wants to spend another $1.3 billion plus to put more people in prison, which is a money-making business all by itself, than to turn around and invest in every zip code in Alabama having the same educational equity as Mountain Brook has, as the school in the Black Belt does. We have to work and make sure we do better with education. As it relates to health care, I'm sure you probably heard me say this over and over and over and over again. But one of the simplest things Alabama can do to move forward, to employ more people, to see more people healthy, is to expand Medicaid. By the numbers, very quickly. It's so easy to roll out. I want you to hear it, and when you hear it, you're going to say, that doesn't make any sense why we have not expanded Medicaid. If we invest $228 million, the government will pay 90% of that through the Affordable Care Act. That leaves us with $22.8 million that we invest, and we'll get back over $390,000 coming our way. Now, you don't have to be a smart female or male to get that, but if you can give somebody $22 and they can give you $390 back, I mean, who wouldn't take up such a deal? But we haven't. If we did that, we could employ immediately over 20,000 people. Immediately see $2 billion in revenue. Immediately see over 280,000 people have access to health care, and the list goes on and on and on. So you might want to ask your legislator, whether they're Republican, Independent, Democrat, why hasn't Alabama expanded Medicaid? Can I be honest with you? It's probably something as petty as the name that's attached to it, and that's of a former president. And that's how shallow we are. Those are the type of people we elect in office. If you don't want a bill to work for us because it's attached to a name, something's not right with that. I don't care which side you're on. I'm going to stop with just the fight that women are in right now and say this. I've heard all kinds of things over the last few days. I don't believe in fear mongering. I don't believe in pandering. But I've heard people say things like, people are playing with the idea of women not being able to vote. Can you believe that in 2025? You might not believe it. There is something called Project 2025. And whether you like it or not, some argue we are 31% through that. If that is the case, it ought to scare you by the time we get to 60 or even 90 where we're going to be, if we're this far already. So there's a whole lot that could be said about women's health, women's rights, whether you're pro-life, pro-choice. The government has no business intervening, telling any family member what they need to do with their body or make decisions for them. I'm a person who believes in life from the cradle to the grave. My wife and I, no secret, dealt with, as I mentioned to you, even during our live stream, dealt with the loss of one in the womb, dealt with the loss of a child. And it changed the way I think about life personally. You know, I believe life is important at every step. Some of you know I have another profession outside of here where I wear a backwards collar from time to time and put on a chain and a robe sometimes. Long story short, I'm the last one at the grave site. Usually after everybody leaves, it's me and the undertaker and the dirt being thrown in the grave 6 feet under. So life is important to me from beginning to end. But it's also important for me to understand, and you understand, there's some women that are bleeding out in Alabama in bathrooms all by themselves, who need help but can't get to an OBGYN because the OBGYN is afraid she or he might be prosecuted for trying to help them through a process, whether good or whether bad. So Alabama needs to embrace a compassionate type leadership model. Leaders in office who will strive to make sure that they listen more than they talk. Did anybody have the opportunity when HB 445, and I know you spent a lot of time in Montgomery, but if you did, how many of you had time to really be heard by your legislators? And if you did, somebody laughed. People laughed. If you did, then wonderful. You're in a special place. One of the things I want to bring to the table as I stop is this. I can't wave a magic wand day one and fix what took place with the hemp ban. But I can call a legislative session. I can restrict the focus to nothing but hemp, nothing but cannabis, nothing but whatever the drug, whatever the substance may be, and we can discuss that openly. And if people choose not to be a part of that, that's them. That's when you call them out and say, representative, we elected you to represent us, at least to listen to us. Why won't you even show up and do your job? I believe it's time to legalize. I believe it's time to listen. And I believe it's time for us to lead and move forward. And that's why I'm here tonight. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm Will Boyd. I'm excited to have a team member that's really close to me right here. Give it up for Elizabeth Callahan. She is all over there. I'm just going to say pixies in the house, some undercover people that are going to do a lot of work in the house. So we appreciate everybody for all you are doing. Please check me out. My website is drwillboyd.com. One of the slogans I close with every time we end a speech, and of course I've not given you a speech tonight, but it's Alabama can, Alabama will, plan on my name. I think you heard it before. Say it one more time. Alabama can, Alabama will. All right, you all sounding good, real good. Elizabeth tricked me. She said, there are only going to be about 15 people here or something like that. And you all packed the room out. Look at you. Alabama can. Alabama has good people like you who are willing to move forward. And with you electing Will, I believe we're going to see change. So thank you so much for this opportunity. And with that, I want to stop, listen, hear your questions, and try to answer them. What questions do you have for me tonight? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Sarah.
Hey, Sarah.
I've been a line cook. It's my profession. I've been to school for it for 15 years. One of the main reasons I moved away from here, I did live here for 10 years just because I knew that if I wanted to take my job seriously, that I couldn't do it here. And upon moving back, after living in New Orleans for a really long time, I was floored when I heard for so long that, oh, you'll have so much an easier time living in Mobile again because it's so much cheaper. It's not. It's almost the exact same cost of living as it is in New Orleans, except the pay has not gone up at all. I spent time looking for jobs, and there are people who are hiring for $10 an hour. I have a job now that I like, but I'm having to leave it because I can't afford to pay my bills. And I'm being punished because I decided to go pursue a degree in a field that makes me happy. And the businesses here aren't doing anything to help us. And they expect us to just somehow live off of that. And it's incredibly frustrating. And I mean, and I hate to say it, but it makes me one day wonder if I'm gonna have to leave again to be able to afford to live. And I just wanna know what you would potentially plan to do about minimum wage and about helping people like me who want to continue contributing to an economy that brings people here, but we're not seeing the benefits of that.
So you're an example of what I talk about when I say brain drain. You went to school, you invested believing that you would do better, and had to leave. You left. We're so glad you came back. As it relates to business, larger businesses are only about 20% of most economies, 80% of the smaller businesses. When you drill into the numbers, most smaller business owners might tell you the reason why they can't do better beyond minimum wage to where I want us to be, a living wage, is because they think it's a cost that they have to add to the product or service they give. You'll be surprised the number of people that tell me things like, if I raise this person's wage up any higher, that hamburger is going to cost $20. Well, in reality, studies have been done, and it is only going to raise the cost about 20 cents. So 20 cents versus $20, you know, it's just that people don't want to invest. So one of the things we have to do, I think, as it relates to education, is help people to understand that when people like you are around, Sarah, who have great gifts, great talents, great educational backgrounds, we need to attract you and keep you. From a business point of view, it is cheaper to retain an employee or customer than to go out and buy a new one. So if you are already with me, I'm going to do everything I can to work with you. From the union perspective and even from the business perspective, I push for a living wage. I talked to someone on the way here today who was excited about taking a job opportunity, but could not take it because with his family size, the living wage calculator indicated that he couldn't make it. And so he had to stay away. So I get it, it's a reality. What do? beyond educating businesses about the impact of living wages being in place, I think we also help to incentivize businesses that are in certain regions. When I was out of the country, we had economic and technical development zones. I think we have to have zones set up in certain places where there are certain things that are missing. You know, as in education, when you have critical needs areas, I think we have to identify critical needs areas in cities and be willing to invest to make sure, again, Sarah, people like you are able to come in, succeed, and do well. So it's a long process. It involves, first of all, helping people understand what a living wage is. And then I think it's going even further. And again, I have an Alabama Arise book in my briefcase in the back of my car, one of those yellow books. Going further, it takes us talking a little bit more about things like the grocery tax being eliminated completely. Not just issues like diapers and milk, you know, which are important, we want that, but we need, in our economy, those who are making less not to be burdened the most. So at a higher level, there are things you can do with the standard deduction, property taxes, and a whole lot more just to change the way that we're structured so that at the end of the day you carry home more money. That is the overarching plan that I think the state has to have, and that relates basically to revenues. But at the local level, again, educating business owners is important. But I thank you for what you do. It's not a simple fix, but that's the approach that I take. Yes, ma'am.
So with the grocery tax, obviously they've already lowered it by 1% starting September 1st. With that, we are going to see a loss of $124 million in our state education fund, and that was a win for them because it wasn't 115.
Right.
How are you planning on replacing that revenue? Because obviously we're already going to lose money.
Right.
So what's the plan there?
One of the things that I believe is very important, I've been saying this on the campaign trail, even when Walt Maddox and I ran as governor and lieutenant governor candidates, nominees, is that we have to have an educational lottery in Alabama. We're spending a lot of time educating Tennessee, Mississippi, Florida, Georgia, but we're suffering here. We have seen where, you're going to get, probably some people get angry with me for saying it, but we've seen where the educational trust fund has been raided. You know, educational trust fund is the biggest portion of the pie, but when we keep taking away from it, we are saying that education is not a priority for us. So we have to make sure we protect the educational trust fund. So it's not just about the lottery, but all of these other revenue streams I'm talking about creating. Education is the main channel that money goes towards. That's how you replace it. There are other ways of doing it. I talked about things you can do with taxes, but there are also creative ways of handling licensing in Alabama. Now, I'm not a fan of the licensing that we have right now because we overtax, overburden small businesses, and they pay a lot just to maintain a license versus other states. But there are some licenses and some fees that larger corporations are refusing to pay, that if we had a fair approach to it, it would be much better. I'm a proponent of what we call a flat or a fair tax, to where we see that type of taxation in Alabama. Right now, the poor are bearing the load that the rich are not even trying to carry for us. So that's how you replace it. Let me say this, and I don't do this often enough, but Senator Tuberville just said he wants to cut taxes altogether. I wasn't gonna call the name that Pixie calls him. She has about 3 or 4 or 5. But he wants to cut taxes. And if he thought about it before he said it, that's hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue that's not coming to our poor state that we need. And so therefore, we have to talk about ways he's gonna replace that, or I will replace it as well. Hope I answered your question. Yes, ma'am.
Hi.
Hello.
Speaking of replacing funding, and concerns with that, we are obviously a distributed state in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
We are getting an increasing number of data centers coming
Yes.
to the state, and I think that, I speak for more than just me when I say we're concerned about people with billions of dollars who can hyper-fund campaigns or lobbying or whatever.
Absolutely.
Could you maybe speak to your position on environmental impacts of things like data centers, and what might motivate you not to listen to a billionaire like us?
I'm not a fan.
Can you also dovetail on that about how our electricity bills will go up and how we'll end up paying for that data center to run?
Absolutely,
In the
absolutely.
next 25 years.
Absolutely. First of all, I was going to say something else, but let me just jump and say, as it relates to public service commissions, we penalize in Alabama for innovation. We penalize for people who want to put solar panels on houses. You have to pay more. That's backwards. If I'm putting solar panels out and I'm bringing energy, electricity to the grid, I should be able to enjoy that reward. And you talk about data centers, and many people are starting to learn what those are. I'm talking to someone right now, believe it or not, with an alternative energy source. I'll just say her first name is Lisa, that can actually power a whole data center without even dealing with the current electrical system we have right now. With just that H2O approach that she takes, she's a CEO, it's an operating business. We could see right now a data center could be supplied with power, but guess what? Our state will not even allow them to move forward with that. Now, I want to be careful how I lay that out for you one-on-one. I'll be happy to share it with you. But there's a monopoly in the great state of Alabama, and we control, certain things. One or two people control everything. As it relates to the control, Citizens United is a perfect example. When you have a corporation or that can function as an individual, or you have look at just some of our candidates. 15 or 20 people can give you enough to pass 25 million. Guess who she or he will listen to at the end of the day? Whatever they say. I'm not owned by anybody. I'm proud to say the Alabama Cannabis Coalition has endorsed me, no secret, and others are coming along to endorse as well from different backgrounds and places, as they always do. For people like myself, but I'm more excited about being backed by people and listening to people. And so the way I would love to deal with the issue of money, again, mentioned a person named Lisa earlier with the data center and the power she can provide. We talked about you should not be able to raise money outside of your district. Think about how restrictive that would be. If a person is running for, let's just say, I'm going to make up a number now. If a person's running for District 11 in the House, or if they're a Senate District 11, you raise your money in that district. You don't go to New York. You don't go to Canada. And I'm just making up this country now, right? You just don't leave and go anywhere in the world with dark money coming in for special interest. And I said Canada, but let me just stop for a second. Do you all know who owns the timber in the United States? Most of the timber that we have is not even ours. Other countries invest in our country and have our resources. So again, I'll just wrap it up by saying we have to look at the way money is raised for candidates. We have to move into the dark money area, zoom in, hone in on how these candidates are receiving millions and billions of dollars. One billionaire, believe it or not, can buy a whole election in Alabama. And so you think about that. Somebody from Illinois, somebody from Missouri could just back one candidate with any interest they have and forget the rest of us, and it's all over. So it's going to take reform in the way we have energy, the way we deal with energy, the way we deal with money being raised. Yes, sir.
One of my passion areas is public transit. So what are your thoughts on Amtrak expanding that throughout Alabama, or even our bus system, especially in rural areas that have no kind of access to transit?
So I live in Shelby County. Thank you for your question. But I'm one county away from Jefferson. Mobile, obviously. Counties like Mobile and Jefferson benefit greatly by a public transit system in place. But let me take it to the national level first. I told you for every dollar Alabama gives the federal government, we get 3 back. But do you know Alabama every year leaves a lot of money on the table as it relates to transit and high-speed rail? So for years, I have been traveling around the state saying how, and I want to say Mr. Kennedy as well, how we need to see high-speed transit so the person could, let's just say, live in Mobile, Alabama, or work in Jefferson County. Or let me flip it for a second. What if you had someone who lived in a rural community where they pay taxes, but they came in and worked here and took those taxes or that money, paid their taxes in their locality and helped to improve where they are. That's what public transit would do. You could shop, in your case, maybe Huntsville, Alabama, in the morning and be back home in Mobile in the evening. That's what public transit could do. I propose that it follow our interstates, run it right down the corridors that are already in place. That's not a hard sell. The government will help us with that. Federal government. Alabama just won't take up the offer. So I want you to really leave here tonight asking yourself, is Alabama really in trouble? Is Alabama poor because we just can't get our hands on anything? Or are we poor because of the decisions our leaders are making? And I think you'll be surprised. Some of you won't when you see the decisions that are made to keep us where we are. It hasn't changed. So yes, for public transit. I saw two hands go at the same time, and then I'll come your way.
Can I follow up on this?
Absolutely.
This transit thing, I used to be a nurse practitioner in Pine Hill, Alabama. It's on the western side of the
Yes.
box. Had patients, we were 2 hours in any direction that you want to go for a great many specialists.
Absolutely.
So, of course, we took care of things locally as much as we could, but we had some very dedicated caring physicians and nurse practitioners in that area. But getting someone 2 hours away from a rural place like that is really challenging. So I don't want you to forget that.
I don't. Believe it or not, when I'm in Pickens County, they have to go all the way to Tuscaloosa County to get healthcare treatment because of the lack of ambulatory services or the hospital struggles they had. When I'm in Lawrence County, I was there about a month or two ago, and Elizabeth will tell you, when I went in right before a forum like this one, I said, let's walk through the hospital. Guess what? It closed 2 weeks before I got there. This big, beautiful bill is, when I was there telling them it was 11 hospitals in the sites, there are now 23 Alabama hospitals that are likely to close because of the big, beautiful bill. Now, we're going to come back to those 23 for later, but let me just tell you something interesting about that since you mentioned where you work. Some people believe that all 23 of those hospitals are in rural, low-income areas. It's half of them. So influential, rich, wealthy places are going to be impacted just like the poor areas are. I want to get back to your idea of transportation. A lot of people are over 45 minutes commute away from their home. That's an issue as it relates to USA Today. If you all want to see how other larger entities grade our state, that's a factor. Going back to both of your questions, being over 45 minutes away is a negative ding against Alabamians as a whole across the state. So that's what public transit would do. There are a lot of women who cannot get their OBGYN, cannot get to the help they need. As a result, we have a high infant mortality and maternity mortality rate in the great state of Alabama because we don't have ways they can get to the hospitals they need in a timely fashion. So some of you probably didn't get it when I said travel from Pickens to Tuscaloosa. Let me make this clear. That's a 1 hour commute one way. When I was running in 2022 for the United States Senate, the nominee for Alabama was me against Katie Britt. At that time, there was a young kid in Pickens County who was mauled by a dog. Do you know if your child was injured, and I have a dog, by the way, if you see the Facebook, Coda, he's my Secret Service detail. But if a child had an issue with a dog bite, if you slipped and fell in a bathroom, if you hit your head on the sink, if you're cutting grass and for whatever reason a blade comes up your lawnmower and hits you, think about that. You run in the house, you call somebody, you get your keys, and you wait 1 hour for a vehicle to come pick you up, and another hour to get to the hospital, and you sit another hour. By that time, you could have bled out. Are you catching this? So public transit is important. I'm not advocating for a bunch of people just sick and bleeding out on transit, but the point I'm trying to make is we can have preventive care in place. If a person can say, you know what, I'm an hour away from my doctor, but I can jump on a train or a bus and get there a lot faster, it makes a difference. So thank you for bringing that. That also allows for healthcare professionals that are in a metro area to go into a rural area very fast. So that helps in areas where they're suffering with no nurse practitioner, no midwifery services, or whatever it may be, delivery assistance, no federally qualified healthcare centers. That allows a professional person to be there in a time of that. Yes, ma'am. And then I'm coming back to you.
Okay, so it's kind of a two-part question. I work in real estate, so I'm constantly talking to people who have been priced out of the market. This is a very specifically local thing, especially in Baldwin County. Anyone who's looked at Zillow lately has noticed that Baldwin County's gotten, it's ridiculous, the pricing, especially when it hasn't kept up with wages. We know that Tommy Tuberville is being heavily backed by D.R. Horton and other large developers. With that in mind, do you have a plan for kind of controlling the growth? I know Madison County is experiencing exponential growth as well. How do we control that at the state level to ensure that we are not putting the strain on infrastructure, we are not putting the strain on the environment, and we're not pricing the locals out of the market? And in that same breath, we also see rentals getting ridiculously high. You know, I remember back in 2014 to 2019, or 2017, I was living in an apartment that is now double the cost of what it was for a one-bedroom fully. So, do you have any plans to keep housing affordable as, you know, as a renter, but also to help protect the people who are currently living here from being priced out of the market that they currently live in?
So one of my first calls today was with a person whose last name is Boyd, also not related, but a person who's homeless. And I was trying to find him a place that he can stay in an apartment closer to the North Alabama area. And believe it or not, the best apartment that we could find for him was around $1,200.
That doesn't surprise me one bit.
What can he do with that? I mean, even if he, just as an example, I'm putting things out, but what if he had $500 coming in from Social Security? That could even pay half of what he needs. So from an affordability standpoint, yeah, we have to be very careful. But let me just jump for a second. One of the concerns I have is this stacking and packing methodology is also, I believe, strategic as it relates to voting.
Okay, 100%.
100%.
Okay.
So people want to see more people densely populated so that votes shift one way or the other. So that's one of the things you have to think about when you start looking at what's happening. I think citizens show up in a community when the developers are out and say, look, this is what we would like to see. This is what is affordable for us. And I think whenever the presentation is being made to city council, that's when you work through your city council person and mayor to make sure that they're not bringing in places that eventually price out the people who are there in the area and then intentionally demolish other neighborhoods that have been there a long time and force people out. I see that happen all too often as well. So we have to, like I talked about the billionaires earlier with Citizens United and other campaign practices, we have to face those billionaires in our own communities, those developers, and call them to the carpet and say, this is what we want to see. So it is important. Affordability is another one of those indices that people like USA Today and others look at. When we are pricing people out of housing, people don't want to come to Alabama. It's a good thing to come to Alabama. We want people to come. But again, you mentioned Huntsville, one of the fastest growing cities.
Madison and Baldwin County are the two.
Madison and Baldwin are. And look at how much it costs to live there. It's not fair for the person, let's just say, who worked on the Redstone Arsenal in North Alabama, retired with cost of living being here, and all of a sudden, next week, it's up there. So it takes a whole lot of, I think, effort on our parts to start with our city council at the local level, go to a Mayor Tommy Battle up in Huntsville or whoever may be the appropriate mayor in the city that you're in, and tell them what you want to see. As governor, I think that I have to push the need for there being affordable housing across the whole state. But honestly, that is something that municipalities control, not the state itself. I wish I could, but that's at a local level. this is also a capitalistic, if I could, which technically people don't like to say this, but we are a blend of a socialist and a capitalist type of approach. So in capitalism, as you well know, from a business perspective, you don't want to regulate to the point that people's ideas are not freely embraced. But when you see people taking advantage of others, I think they should be called out, and that's what's happening in these cases with this type of housing, lack of affordability. Did I answer your question first?
Yes.
What other ways can I address that as a government? You help me.
I mean, the biggest thing we've seen down here, I mean, locally, is in Baldwin County, there's always a neighborhood that's been built that has major runoff issues, that's dumping, you know, we've seen water quality issues. That seems to be the, you know, there's things that can be only controlled, like you said, at the city or county level, and I know a lot of people have been pushing back against the county commission to grant these permits to these larger builders. It's just really hard when most of the land that's being developed is county, not the city. And there's obviously a lot of money involved. But the biggest thing would be, at the state level, is there anything we can do from an environmental standpoint to push back on it? Because I know, like I said, regulations wise, it's city and county still, but is there anything that can be done at the state level to kind of edge it in one way?
I think, and I'm glad you brought that up. I think I mentioned earlier about Alabama being one of the most biodiverse states. From an environmental perspective, we have issues as it relates to soil. Mr. Kennedy and I have talked about Mercaptan as it relates to Mobile, a spill. We've talked about clean water as it relates to Bishop Mountain. We've talked about the fact that in Lowndes County, we have a septic sewage issue where 25,000 people are experiencing septic sewage issues. Asked for a septic tank since 1986 when they built their brand new homes and still don't have it today. The last president actually pushed for money to come this way. Current president stopped that money from moving forward. So we're kind of at the mercy of the federal government as it relates to dollars coming in, but from an environmental perspective, again, protecting certain lands is important, preventing erosion, runoff. When you have a whole lot more surface, asphalt jungles, concrete, water has to go somewhere, especially in places like this, soil erosion, something in Mobile and Baldwin County. Those are things I think we can push back on, and to your point, to stop the overcrowding, say, from the environmental point of view, that's the way we attack it. So thank you for helping me to move forward with that answer as well. Yes, ma'am. You waited a long time.
Okay, I'm patient. So, I mean, we all know what's going on with ICE and some of our, most vulnerable, citizens and neighbors. It's getting worse by the day, so by the time you might, what can you do, what are your plans to protect, those individuals? And, what can you do at a state level to ensure that, maybe local law enforcement is not aiding at all possible?
Yeah. From a legal point of view, the real valid reason why, or constitutional way that the federal government can come in and do something like that at the level they're doing it is if there were an invasion. Like, for example, the National Guard coming in. I'm going to switch to ICE in a second. The National Guard coming in, we could argue that's not constitutional because there's not an invasion. Secondly, we could argue that by law, they are not to assist local law enforcement officer with policing the streets, all right? Now you might say, well, you asked about ICE, why is he talking about the National Guard? Because it's all blending together now. And at one point in time, can I be blunt and honest? This is not, when Elizabeth and I are doing these videos for social media, it has to be 30 seconds, I'm in and out, bam, I can say it real fast and it's over. But I'm just talking with you all behind the scenes, if you all don't mind me giving you the long answer today. We have a blending now to where it was people of color that feared being apprehended. People who have certain last names who feared being apprehended. People who might have a certain working class, a card, if you would, green card, whatever it may be, who feared being apprehended. Now we know that there are white men and white women who are being detained. They talk to us. They've been zip tied. They've been thrown on the ground in 90+ degree weather. They've been apprehended for over an hour until they finally agreed to a search of a vehicle, even knowing their rights. So right now, the concern I have is the fact that the law, and I'm all for the law. I have many people around me who serve in law enforcement. We need law enforcement. We need more Alabama Law Enforcement Association people working in Alabama. We need more state troopers working in Alabama. We need more municipalities with more law enforcement. Did I say that enough? Now let me say this. The problem we have is you have some rogue individuals in federal offices, in federal agencies that believe that they can take the law into their own hands, and they're not going through due process. They're not taking their time to do what they need to do to research. So I wouldn't doubt, I know for a fact, not I wouldn't doubt, I know for a fact there are people right now who have been apprehended who should not have been. Elizabeth, I'm not gonna look at you. You can just nod your head and say yes or no. Don't we know this is a fact? All right, I'm gonna take her to the soul amen corner over there. That's not good. Because I talk about my son. My son has hair that's probably down to his shoulders, braided down. He wanted to, he can bring it out like an afro, you know. But I'm afraid if he walked out on the street at any given time, he could be apprehended. You know what? To be honest with you, I'm afraid if I'm walking down the street, I can be apprehended. All right? Nobody's exempt in this room. No matter what you look like, what you have in your pocket, wallet, it doesn't matter. So I think we have to be very, very concerned about what's happening right now and push back and ask, what is ICE's main objective? Now, the sad part is that the stories I have to listen to are heartbreaking on a daily basis. But do you know the goal is for 3,000 people a day? 3,000? That's a quota.
That's what.
That means it could be exceeded, and they can be rewarded for those activities. So this is where, like I talked about going through city council, this is where I need you all, and you know, I saw some videos of what you all do down here in LA, Lower Alabama. You all won congressmen off. You know, hey! Bring that same fire to city council meetings. Bring it to county commission meetings. Bring it to meetings where you know federal employees are going to show up and speak and call them out on it and let them know it's not right. Call your local law enforcement, local elected officials, state and federal. Let them know you see what's happening and it's not right, and that's how we change. All right. Did I answer your question?
You did.
All right. Probably too much. I see your two hands in it.
There's a law 287 where the state is supposed to agree to let the police do the work of the ICE. And some have not agreed to it. I think Barrow hasn't agreed to it. So what can you do about that? Because they're still doing it.
Yeah, I'm making this clear as it relates specifically to the National Guard. They cannot legally do any type policing.
And
They cannot do that. Even if a municipality says it's okay or whatever, do whatever you want. No, they cannot do that. So whoever is saying that is true, it's not. If it went a court of law, it could be pushed back. The problem though is by the time you get this into a courtroom, how many people have you locked up? Quite a few. And then watch this money-making business. They're trying to get immigration attorneys or lawyers to get them out, and before you know it, it's a racket. Prisons are basically ways that people can make a lot of money in Alabama. And if we're not careful, you're going to see more alligator Alcatrazes pop up all over our state because people don't care what is being done. So I hear you, and I agree with you. There are some agreements that should be made, but when statewide we embrace that activity, they can come in and do whatever they want to do. Look at California. Look at Illinois. You can see what's happening. I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I have
and
a
I'm over here and over here. Yes, ma'am.
But I wanted to follow up on that. As governor, would
Yes.
you have any say? Could you stop what's happening with the ICE? And National Guard coming into our state?
I would love to say I can, and I will,
Okay.
but look at Governor Gavin Newsom.
Right.
Look at Governor J.B. Pritzker, Illinois, all right? They've already pushed back, and troops are already there as we speak. And it's about to move even further. There are other cities that have been targeted as well, and I use the word targeted on purpose. And I dare you to just look at the demographics of the cities that are being targeted and ask yourself a whole other question: why is that being done? Look at the person's political background, who is the elected official in that area, and you start to see this is not about safety and trying to restore law and order. It's something totally different. And when we let people let me just say it this way: when people operate outside the law, or when people take the law in their own hands, a lot of people get hurt, even killed. So it's not good. So, but as governor, yes, I would push back. I would fight back.
Okay, thank you. My actual question, and that was just a follow-up, is about guns.
Yes, ma'am.
And as I understand it, the leading cause of death for children in Alabama, as
Yes.
well as nationally, is
Yes.
guns.
It is.
Again, as governor, what kind of things can you do about that for our state?
Well, it's no secret that I have a D behind my name, and I have to work with people with an I and an R that are there. But one of the things that I found most effective is to tell people how much, it's sad, but how much a gunshot wound cost. It's sad, but people don't get it until you put it into dollars sometimes. So what I typically do when I'm in the room with other people, I say, first of all, let's agree we all are supporting the Second Amendment, right? And everybody agrees. Let's agree we all want to have guns with the ability to buy guns. Everybody agrees. Interestingly, the Democrats often have more guns than the Republicans, right? But at the end of the day, at the end of the conversation, what I work down to is this: there are over 1,000 Alabamians who get shot and killed by way of gun violence every year. Over 1,000. There are over 3,444 that get injured by guns every year in Alabama. Let's put that in perspective. 67 counties, but over 4,000 families every year, if not the same family, but 4,000 families are affected by gun violence. Why wouldn't we do something about that? Why wouldn't we talk about red flags? Or why would we talk about making sure that if a person has an issue with mental struggles or whatever they may be, if they've been identified by a therapist, a psychologist, psychiatrist, as somebody who's perhaps would bring injury to themselves or other people, why not make sure they cannot go lay hands on guns? First of all, I tell people, just enforce the rules, the laws that are on the books first. Do that, and that will stop problems overall. But then take it a step further and make sure when you have people who are willing to go out and buy guns, they need a longer period for them to be checked and investigated. Background check should be a little bit longer. These are simple things we can do that can actually stop these things from occurring. On the other side, I could talk about schools and how we prevent mass shootings, but in reality, again, it's the people on the front end who are getting the guns that is the problem. The guns aren't the problem. It's the people that are putting their hands on them.
Yeah.
So that's why I handle it. Talk about the issue, the numbers, and then how can we bring about a solution. Usually when I bring it home with the numbers, and sadly, a cost per gunshot or a cost per death, all of a sudden they say, you know what, we don't want to see Alabama spend that type of money. What can we do? Now I believe I saw your hand next. Yes, ma'am. Ms.
Thank
Moore.
you.
Yes, thanks for taking my question, Dr. Boyd.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Mia Ward.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
work with the school system. I advocate on the national level in Congress. I'll be there this year for the first time next month, on October the 9th. Also, human resources at the school system, and also with the Alabama Education Association Board of Directors.
Thank you for all you do.
So my question is related to the right to work. We see a lot of people who are being already, as you mentioned earlier, like with women, the DEI that's being forced upon us now from the current administration. We see bullying in the workplace. Turnover is very high, and it seems like it's taking us back to that area where people who have spent their life working their employment, regardless of the number of years that they put in, whether they're a good employee, usually because of personal conflicts, or somebody just doesn't like the color dress you wore that day, or doesn't like your shoe, whatever the case may be. And on the national scale, I have spoken with some other directors who are pushing an initiative in their state where the leadership is trying to go about reversing the right to work in their state. Is there anything as governor, if elected, that you would be able to do to possibly reverse that or start some legislation that could do away with that? Because we have, other than women, you know, like I said, the DEI doesn't matter, and it's not always about the race. You know, so many other factors that could cause people to be pushed out of their employment. And so, would there be anything that you could see or think of or do that could potentially start us in the direction to reverse that?
Absolutely.
All these years?
I mentioned one earlier, thank you for your question. I mentioned the blue collar revival.
Yes.
That's where we're bringing labor to the table with businesses. For those who may or may not know, Alabama is a right to work state. That means that they don't welcome, to a certain degree, unions. Unions began to basically provide representation for people. And so, due process, I happen to know the American government leader for the federal employees, Reverend Dr. Kelly. So I'm sure you may have met him before, but long story short, unions provide a voice or a way people can be heard. We have to move forward making sure that people understand in Alabama, there are people who don't embrace unions, but they enjoy union benefits. Since 1950, union participation has dropped in the United States by 2/3. By 2/3. One of the organizations I speak to often, I've even flown to New York to speak to them, is the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers. They were founded in 1888. They have people who work in sugarcane fields in Florida. They have people who make money in Texas. They have people near Fort Rucker that keep the planes in the air. They're machinists. They're all over. But long story short, whether you're in the machinists or International Association of Theater and Speech Employees, they work together to make sure the rights of people are protected. One of the things I like about IATSE, I just mentioned them, is they fight for gender equality as it relates to pay. So if you look at a theater and speech employee, the women make the same as men. One of the reasons why I like pro-union initiatives like the PRO Act, which is legislation, is because they want to make sure that every male and female get the same pay. It has to be equal. There's a whole lot more, right to bargain collectively, a whole lot more. So moving Alabama forward just shows that it is possible to be embracive of, to embrace unions, but also to be business-minded. Let me leave you with one last stat, and it's this. In Alabama, even though we have one of the lowest participation rates since 1971, we have right now roughly 115,000 union people, but every year about 18,000 non-union people enjoy union benefits without ever paying one single dollar for a due. It's not fair. But here's what I have proposed in other states and even right in Alabama. What we should do, to bring your question home, is you sit the people down who are part of that 18,000 and say to them, you didn't want to be a part of a union, but didn't the union fight for you? Would you be willing to testify to other people in this right to work state that unions do good things? And when we use them as testimonials, that helps to get us to a point where we can do away with the right to work mentality being a bad thing. Now, in case you missed it, Senator Tommy Tuberville has recently said he wants to push trade. Well, how can you push trade? The trades, let me make that clear, not NAFTA, not trading with China, not tariffs. He wants to push the trades, unions. How can you push unions and you want to push right to work at the same time? So please, we need to start listening to what people are saying, and if it doesn't make sense, call them out. That's answering my question. Yes, sir, Brother Johnson.
Thank you so much for coming down.
No, thank you. All you do.
I'm trying to be good with my dog.
Yeah.
I'm trying to hook the
No,
brother.
that helped me out.
I don't know if I have a question or if it's more of a statement. What I'm holding down in my hand, this is a piece of hemp wood. It's made out of hemp. This is a pain stick that is made out of hemp as well. So from housing to healing,
Yes.
a lot can be done with this plant if it's properly pursued the right way. When you make houses out of hemp, the houses are mold resistant, pest resistant, fire retardant. You can put a blowtorch right here against it for hours and it won't catch on fire.
That's right.
And it sequesters carbon from the environment at the same time as well. So what steps do you see being put in place, one, to drive that message, and two, the numbers that you gave earlier about $1 that we invest, we get X amount of dollars back from the federal government. I'm assuming those numbers weren't including carbon sequestering initiatives by a plant that we've only scratched the surface with in this state.
Right.
So what do you foresee happening with
That special legislative session I mentioned earlier is where a person like you would come in with your expertise in your business. Absolutely. Yeah, come in and light the place up. I need a drum set. I'm gonna leave that alone. Sorry. But no, that's what we need to do. We need to make sure we educate people. And what you did in 1 minute or even 30 seconds is powerful. When you say hemp in Alabama, most people think
it? They think
weed,
marijuana. Like,
a flower. You know, they don't.
I'm tripping about that. I'm talking about something totally different.
And when you start educating people like that, they say, "Oh, I see it now," and they embrace it. I don't know if you noticed it or not, but there are now a lot of Republicans that want to embrace cannabis, the legalization of a whole lot more now, because they're starting to see what you just showed.
But that's not him.
It's not him.
You
Exactly.
see what I'm saying? That's the part that, that people need to get a better grasp around. I'm not gonna say that okay, a little bit of background. I was Air Force for 21 years, retired in 2016. I teach a hemp seminar. I'm 10% owner of a medical grower in Oklahoma. I own the cannabis testing laboratory that's registered with the DEA in San Antonio, Texas, for animal control substances. So I do a lot of stuff in this space. So I'm not for or against. I'm like, hey, do you, boo? You want to get high? Whatever. You want to don't get high? Whatever. Cool. THC. Like, what I care about is people fundamentally knowing the difference instead of just calling it cannabis.
Right.
Because hemp and marijuana are both cannabis, just like apples and oranges are both fruits.
Right.
So more effort needs to be put into the grassroots education. that we're talking about.
Industrial hemp.
It's primarily
Industrial applications.
Well, does
Absolutely.
that mean some kind of incentive by the state to help the hemp industry? Because you talk about a piece of wood that you held up. If I was, say, building a house or.
You have to buy that, say, Kentucky.
Where am I
You
gonna
have to
get
buy
that?
that from Kentucky.
Yeah, Murray, Kentucky.
You have to have
Rick Wilson.
someone come in from Virginia to build you a
Well, I
hemp
heard-
green house.
But that's assuming that I knew that existed.
Right,
So you
exactly.
mentioned
So,
Right.
that's what I'm saying, we need people that can go
Absolutely.
and do a little bit of a road show around
Absolutely.
the state and actually do real education and get the word out the right way so that people know, hey man, if you wanna get high with this stuff, you need to climb a rope made of. We're not trying to get you high, physically. I would love to be able to go around the state and do
Absolutely.
something like that, but I think that's what's needed because a lot of people, I'm living in this room right now because I know you were supported by the Alabama County School.
Absolutely.
If it wasn't for that, I don't care too much about politics anymore. I did 20 years.
I don't either.
That took my soul for 21 years.
I
So
got
I've
it.
done
And thank you for your
check mark, right?
service. Yeah.
But I care about people healing,
Absolutely.
feeling better, and knowing that they have options, one, without getting high, and two, if we can make you a house out of this stuff that's better than this traditional building material that's out there, and not enough people know about it, and as people start to know more about what real use is, that's gonna fix a lot of other things. You talk about the soil mitigation, the soil issues and whatnot. I mean, they used hemp to clean up Chernobyl back in the day with the new bill.
Absolutely.
So just things like that, that needs to happen to kind of fix other issues.
So what you did tonight was powerful, not in this room. You did some powerful here tonight, what you just did.
Well, with light.
No. You turned the light on in the other room by giving me samples of both. And they're now in my bag. That everywhere I travel, I can pull them out and tell people about the uses.
Housing.
Listen,
Housing
the
to-
building cost and affordability probably plays directly into that question as well.
Absolutely.
And just so you guys know, I have some more, if somebody's heard it tonight, there's some samples in this bag that y'all can have. Just let me know if you can have them. I just want to be sure.
And tell them your business if you would one more time.
So I am the owner of Active Duty RX. My name is James Johnson. You can go to activedutyrx.com. I own a CBD brand myself, but I also do a lot of education within the cannabis space as well, to just help people truly understand everything that goes on.
I was looking for your business card, but I'm sure you
Should be in your bag. Don't worry.
You can take it to the room. But you know, we talked, Jennifer, on your show.
Well, and that's the entire point of Sweet Home Canada, to have hempcrete experts and
Absolutely.
hempwood people who are using fiber insulation out of hemp fiber,
Absolutely.
textiles, all the things, because people do need to understand that this isn't just a consumable product. It can change everything. Think about all the children with allergies,
Right.
and medical conditions. Just having a home made with hempcrete makes the air in your home 30% cleaner, just by existing. It's even wind resistant.
Right.
Down here on the coast, with all the hurricanes, it's wind resistant.
Like this business card is made out of hemp paper.
Yeah,
It's no secret that if you put hemp in the ground every 90 to 120 days, you can harvest that
Mhm.
versus trees which take 15 to 20 years to grow back. So we can get 3 or 4 times the amount of yield off of an acre of hemp as we put an acre of trees, and we're sequestering carbon, and we can help heal people.
And you don't need fertilizers, pesticides, and
There
the
you go.
water
And
usage
it leaves
is
the soil better
minimal.
because it puts nitrogen back in the soil.
And we talked about this on your show also. And for every 6 acres, you're putting somebody back to work.
There you
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
every 3 to 6 months, you have that turnover.
You can literally, in that 6 acres, you can make medicine,
go. Yep.
you can make fiber, you can make wood, you can make all sorts of things. Anything made out of cotton, wood, or petroleum can be made from hemp, and you can grow it every 120 days.
This is why it's coming right back to this is why it's important we talk to Alabamians about the alternatives. You don't hear these types of energy, health, and then, by the way, full disclosure, I'm also a mechanical engineer. So these things are important to me. We talk about hempcrete, structural integrity, building. All these things are important, especially in a state where we're subject to tornadoes. That's important. And you mentioned allergies or just issues, mold, as it relates to being in homes.
And they
This
used
is
to
important.
pay people back in the day to grow this for the war efforts, for the
Absolutely.
ship sales,
Right.
the roads, just things like that. So it's like,
Even clothing, it's healthier than microplastic,
Absolutely.
synthetics, and with the hemp fiber textiles, the more you wash it and wear it, the softer it gets, longer it lasts. We wouldn't have so much waste.
Absolutely.
And even if you had hemp plastic water bottle, you throw it out on the side of the
There
road.
you
In
go.
60 days,
It's-
that bottle is gone, and the soil beneath it is better for it.
And not in
Because of
one of the ocean somewhere
bioremediation,
still floating
it
around.
cleans the soil, it cleans
Absolutely.
everything. It's an incredible thing. In 2016, Alabama passed a farm bill for the state that had identical language to the federal 18 Farm Bill. Because Alabama wanted to be on the front end. They wanted to be the pioneers, the innovators, to set the bar. Unanimously voted for this. Some of the same legislators who purposefully snuffed us out after 7 years of good business, helping people, trying to educate people and bring all of these folks into Alabama. There should be construction companies popping up all over the state that do all of these things.
Absolutely.
And creating jobs. And again, it's a sustainable, very easily replicatable. And people in Colorado should be asking for that good Alabama dish. We're farmers. We have Delta soil, the Black Belt. Alabama is the most biodiverse state.
Absolutely.
and I'm taking a step further. It is in my personal opinion, it is a tragedy what happened to Jennifer, what happened to these others, in terms of
Absolutely.
having to go, out of business. here's the thing about it. Was it a loophole in the way the language was written in the Farm Bill? Absolutely. But it was a loophole where they were allowed to make money for X amount of years. Has anybody ever had a baby and let them get 2 or 3 years old and be like, hey, I need you to put that back where it came from? Because you can't, it doesn't work like that, so now that the
Well,
parents are
and
back,
the travesty of the medical cannabis program being stalled out for 4 years. We were the only access people had. And we were doing it too well, I think, some of us. And of course, there's always gonna be people that take advantage. Name a business industry that doesn't have cheaters, you know? I mean, look at the politicians in this state. There's some shady stuff that goes on.
What other questions do we, great points, I'm sorry, yes, sir, yes, sir.
If elected, governor, would you advocate to, raise the minimum wage?
Yes, sir, we addressed that earlier, and I'll say it again, I believe in a living wage. I believe in making sure that every person who works hard has an opportunity to play hard, raise their families well in Alabama. And right now, too many Alabamians are falling behind because you can't live off $7.25 or whatever the minimum wage may be for a particular state. So we have to do a whole lot better. Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm sorry, yes, sir.
This is good. We talked a little bit about, rural healthcare and transportation and stuff like that. There are a lot of rural people in the state, the farmers in Baldwin County, the fisher folk down in the Battery, who feel unheard and kind of disregarded by the Democratic Party. Let's, in just a couple sentences, like, what's your North Star? What's your guiding principle that would resonate with those people?
Well, let's go back to the money issue first of all. When you look at Alpha and who they typically donate to, it's usually Republicans. So guess who gets into office? The Republicans. So you might have a perspective that Democrats aren't listening, but if Democrats aren't getting elected because they don't get support, then how can there be any work done by Democrats? So that's the first thing I'd say. But no, I'll go out. I'm talking to farmers. I'm out in the fields, going to rural areas all the time. I think we have to listen to what their challenges are, what their issues are. Some people have really no clue what farmers deal with. They understand the economy better than anybody else. Sadly, during the pandemic, they're being told at one point in time, we need you to increase demand or supply. And at another point in time, they're told, you pour out some of the milk you may have, or they may one minute go to the federal government and say, we need money because we're falling behind. We can't maintain our farms. On another side, you might see where the government or bigger farms are buying out the smaller ones. So the family-owned farms are actually disappearing, and you're seeing larger farmers that are taking over. I talked to a very wealthy farmer a few months ago who was devastated by some things that happened to him that I won't make public because we're live streaming right now. But I listened to his journey. He was doing very well until one particular incident took place, and now he's struggling. Cannot do what he wants to do at all. So I think farmers have to be listened to like anybody else. But again, we need to see why the Democrats aren't getting elected. It's because those people who can contribute to us just don't. That's one of the problems. I'm just putting it out the way it is. Alpha and others typically support Republicans. Not the answer people want to hear, but it's probably the truth. Uh-oh, you call a phone like you're gonna read, I'm in trouble now.
So I do a lot of volunteer work with the city animal shelter here. I was wondering, like, so you have a dog, what your stances are on animal welfare, if you would pass like stricter rules against like animal cruelty, if you're like favorable towards that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I mentioned CODA earlier. It's important to make sure that we are investing in helping humane societies, whatever the animal may be. I'm strongly against animal cruelty and cruelty. I look at our dog as a member of our family. I just believe it's important to make sure that we even help people who are trying to rescue animals. One of the things that blessed us during the pandemic was going to a place called 2x2 Rescue and actually getting our dog that was actually under a burned out home and giving him a home. But the test that I had to go through, my family go through, is first of all, do we understand the type of love it takes to bring a dog into the home? We mentioned a baby earlier, you know, just kind of joking along, but that's bringing a baby in. If I were not willing to give my dog that type of love, that rescue center would not even take them. And sadly, there's some people, it's unfortunate, I've seen it too many times, they'll get a pet and regrettably they can't afford to take care of the pet and they neglect the pet. So rescues have to go back and get them and bring them back in. So it is important to make sure we do everything to help protect animals. But long story short, animal cruelty, I think should be prosecuted, in my mind, people who do those kind of things to the highest, fullest extent of the law. It's not good at all.
Thank you.
You're welcome, you're welcome. Anybody else?
Could I ask one more? Oh, sorry. They don't offer spading or neutering a pet in the local shelter. What can be done for that? Because it's the municipal shelter.
Right. I can't speak to that at all. I wish I could. I don't know who doesn't offer it. I have gone on record. You can search and you can see videos where I actually promote that very thing. I have one gentleman who followed me during the campaign for the last few years, and he makes sure I talk about spaying and neutering every time. No matter the event, I have to do a quick segment with him. So I just know when I see him, uh-oh, here we go. I'm recording that, so yeah. But obviously, it's very important.
Yeah.
Anybody?
She was going to.
I'm sorry. Yes,
If you
ma'am.
don't mind, I have
No.
another question. It has to do with.
And you'll excuse me, I'm not sick or anything, I'm not sweating because y'all put me under pressure.
Okay. This has to do with the budget that was just passed at the
Yes, ma'am.
federal level, which the governor is going to need to deal with the cuts that happened. And I wanted to ask you about two things. One were the cuts to the SNAP program
Yes,
and how
ma'am.
the state of Alabama could come up with that money. Is that even possible? Or what's going to happen to people who have been recipients? And the other question has to do with something you said earlier about expanding Medicaid. Is that even possible with the cuts that have occurred at the federal level?
Supplemental nutritional assistance programs have been threatened, actually under the first administration of President Trump. And I'm not pointing any fingers at all, but I'm just saying that has come under threat for quite some time. There are a lot of children in Alabama who are poor. I could get down into the weeds and the numbers and talk about that, but long story short, when you mess with those programs, you are affecting their development. It's not enough that Alabama has the #1 pre-K in the whole nation, but about 40% are able to tap into it. But developmentally, when you have kids who don't have the right nutritional food available to them, they're going to classes hungry, they're not paying attention, and they're likely to fall behind. If you ever get a chance, Google how many kids are on suspension in a given year in Alabama. It may surprise you. But that suspension is not always because they are having problems with HDD or ADHD, they can't pay attention. They're hungry. And so we have those problems. So we have to replace that money, absolutely. We talked about other revenue streams. The one we've talked about tonight, everything related to hemp, to cannabis, to everything we discuss are ways to replace that money. On the other side, as it relates to the expansion of Medicaid, it is going to be that the ACA is likely to phase out that 90% that comes back to us. So I mentioned 228. I'm always careful to say that number first. Whether we pay 228 or 22.8 or 228, that money will come back favorably to us. We'll get more back. Even if we didn't have that type help from the federal government, it's been proven by, if you just Google it, some of you use AI, you'll see no matter the study, it's been proven over and over again, without the federal government's help, Alabama can still sustain itself by expanding Medicaid and do well. And if you need me to show you those, I can. That's not a problem at all. So yeah, we can handle it. It's just a choice by Alabama not to do it. So we can spend 228 and and get 394 back, no problem whatsoever. And that will phase out, like I said, around 26. And to your point with the cuts that are being made, we're talking about $50 billion going to rural healthcare centers, rural hospitals. But if you do the math real fast, you get all 50 states trying to cut into that pie. And I'm sorry, I haven't been focusing all the way over. I can, but not all the way back to you. But we could see as high as $200 million a year come back to help us with rural healthcare businesses, our healthcare hospitals. But the problem is that's not enough. It won't cover us. Do you all know over 70% of the hospitals in Alabama are operating in the red right now? Am I right? Over 70%. Think about that. I mean, it looks profitable. You have a baby, you drop the pacifier on the floor, and you think, you get charged, I'm just exaggerating, $200 for the pacifier. You think, man, they're making a lot of money every time the pacifier hits the floor, right? But no, over 70%. Go look at it tonight. It might amaze you. And again, keep this in mind. 23 hospitals are in the sights about to close in Alabama. That ought to be of concern to everybody in the room, no matter the zip code. So yeah, we have to do better. So even the $50 billion that was carved out, that's not enough. Even if, and you asked about the budget. Sadly, the legislature and perhaps the governor and her office, they're depending on the Department of Education to push money to us to cover some of these gaps in the budget. And regrettably, that money's not coming. I mean, even if it comes, we're still going to be in trouble. We're in September now. Next month. That's how close we are to this being a problem. I would tell you all what I really think, just raw, but you all say I'm a conspiracy theorist, but it's almost like they know I'm going to be governor. And they want it to go south while I'm in the seat. But I have a plan to fix all of that to make sure we stay in the black and not the red. We're going to go green, right? Yeah, so that man's lit. He came in here tonight talking about lights, green. No, just kidding. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
One more comment.
Yes, sir.
When she was talking about housing earlier,
Yeah.
the rise in short-term rentals, like across the nation, has really limited the affordable housing, because those are rentals now. And the enforcement of lodging tax has not been enforced with the state.
Right.
So that's something we should go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with what I'm gonna leave it right now, park it right there.
Yeah.
My parents own several homes that they actually allowed to come in South Carolina to rent out. And my mother and I were just talking, my parents are in their 80s. And so every time a tenant moves out, they have to sometimes pull up carpet, sometimes change a fixture. They might have to go back to walls that don't have hempcrete or something like sheetrock, and they have to replace that. And so I was explaining to my mother in a very polite way, unless you, and I'm gonna call him Daddy tonight, unless you, Mommy and Daddy, are plumbers, electricians, or people that can actually do this work, you have to really stop and think how beneficial it is to be in it. Because, yeah, you can keep trying to raise the cost of rent, but if people can't afford it, if you're pricing people out, it's not a good thing at all. But yes, there are, when I talk to a room like this one, I have to be careful because sometimes I have homeowners, I have people who own the properties that are being rented, and then I have on the other side people who feel like they're being priced out. So we have to sit everybody down at the table and reach the best median in between the two. There's something else there, I know it. Come on.
From the enforcement side, I'm on the state, this is something I know about through my job.
Absolutely.
It's done on the honor system, and that doesn't work. So, the state is missing probably 25% of the revenue that it could be getting there.
Missing a lot of revenue. Absolutely.
And those would be jobs too. I mean, more enforcement, it's more jobs that have more people to enforce.
Right.
Absolutely. Again, these are all ideas that that people around the table are bringing up. And we like to talk, as I prepared, to ask Jennifer or Elizabeth or somebody else to come up and wrap it up for me, or I'll stay here as long as you like. I'm here at least 9 o'clock, right? So I have an hour and a half to go. But these are issues that people have who are in it every day. This is your job, right? Partially, but if we had your insight, JJ, your insight, constantly being infused into the government, think about how far ahead we would be. We are proud, and we say this all the time, to have the largest people-powered campaign Alabama has ever seen. Thank you, ladies, for being here tonight. Please follow me. drwillboy.com. Alabama can, Alabama will. So, listen, Alabama can, will. You got it too. Please, get this. If the people would speak up more and take active roles in campaigns like ours, we can actually see the change we need in Alabama. I'm tired, I don't know about you, of seeing the same stuff happen over and over and over again. Let's hold people accountable and let's move Alabama forward, all right? Thank you all for your time.